Jack, how are we doing?
Not bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, real good, thank you. This is interesting because it's the first remote podcast I've ever shot.
Hey, popped your online podcast cherry there then, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's beautiful because this is, well, it's actually terrible. So it's going to ruin everyone's expectation of how it can be because not everyone's got a nice fancy camera and a good microphone to do it all externally and differently like this. So no, it's going to be great. So yeah, please, can we start with, well, I'll tell you what, I'll preface this. This show is called Mastering Business Growth because I am trying to master business growth. So I'm speaking to people like yourself who've done all sorts and got good stories to tell. So please tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Jack. I'm 28. I've recently stepped out of running an agency, which was video production. I ran that since 2018. 2024, at the start of this year, I made the decision to go back to the solopreneur kind of lifestyle. I'm now building an online community business called The Content Club, whilst kind of doing Odyssey as a side thing for now. But yeah, almost a decade in sort of the video industry, making videos for some of the biggest brands in the world, Xbox, Microsoft, Panasonic, all the big blue chips, D2C brands and all the rest. And now kind of settling in a bit more to the solopreneur lifestyle, which makes a big difference, but I'm absolutely loving the change.
That's brilliant. So what exactly is the Content Club?
So the Content Club, do you want me to give you like the sales spiel for it, or do you want me to just
Yeah, why not? Why not? This is your opportunity to plug.
Okay, cool. So the Content Club is an online community for small business owners, professionals, and creators who want to level up their content, stand out online, and grow their business. So essentially, I facilitate, I build, and then as a community, we finesse it together. Every week, we've got different live streams on, different events, different workshops, these sorts of things that help smaller business owners to be able to level up their content and stand out online, get customers, live the life that they want, all that good stuff. So we're only 40... Well, it's the 11th of November today, so we're only, 42 days into it. But we've got 40 members going in. We've got 400 and a bit people on the waitlist to get in. For next month, we're opening the doors all the time. And last month, it sold out in 47 minutes. So we're doing something right, which is great.
That's amazing. How exactly does it work? What do you do? Like, do you show people how to use like their phones to do stuff? Do you walk them through what they should be doing? Why? Just please tell me a bit more.
Yeah, kind of. So I think it's interesting now because content is so highly sought after. It's very in demand. And the people that we've got in the club at the moment are from all different walks of life. Predominantly, they're going to be small business owners or professionals to some degree. Other people run video production companies, which is really interesting. Obviously, can't say who they are just for privacy reasons. But essentially, the whole club is built around every single week. We've got to do something as a community to be able to make bigger, better content together. So that could be one week we're focusing on creating talking head videos. The next we're then working on creating a professional video script for a marketing campaign. I think the beauty of it is that it's facilitating a big group of like-minded people that are all kind of achieving the same stuff. They all want to make better content. They all want to market their business in more creative ways. And I think it's a nicer, very purpose-driven space as opposed to social media, which is becoming a little bit more crowded nowadays. And it's kind of like I think it's a good place to spend your time much more productively rather than actively scrolling and trying to find the stuff that you want to consume. Actually, you can go to this space and everything's there for you. You've got hundreds of tools and resources and all this cool stuff. I'm not here to pitch it, but I think I personally like it, but I'm biased because I built it. But so far, mate, we've only had positive feedback, so that's got to say something.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So this is interesting because I do something similar to you, but also wildly different. When you're in this world, you'll be able to know the difference. Like I'm not a videographer. I'm a guy. I'm audio background. That's what I do. Audio expert, music production, that whole thing. And I learned the basics of cameras to facilitate expanding the podcast wing of it. Now, what's really interesting is you are teaching people how to basically generate an ROI on using video content because that's kind of the core reason any B2B company or any business is investing in another service because they want to know how they can put money in and get more money back. There's other reasons, obviously, but that's like the main one. So with us, it's podcast stuff and we're showing people how to make money from that. And there's sort of three legs to it, which is the targeted networking. There's the video content marketing. And then there's the word of mouth referrals. Now, I actually think the first and the last one, the way we talk about it anyway, are two of the most powerful things you can do. And I almost consider the video content marketing, although it's insanely powerful, it's the least excited part for me. It's the part I think that is, I won't say least excited, it's just I don't know as much about that and the benefits of that as opposed to the other two. So please tell me, What is the deal with video content marketing itself? Why is that so powerful?
I think video is one of the only ways that you can really, I think, establish your personality as a brand presence. I think that's why it's so powerful for smaller businesses, because people buy from people and they connect with people on that emotional, very reputational relationship kind of level. I think podcasts and maybe static stuff and written blogs, I think, are still very important, although they are just there at a slightly different stage of most consumers' journeys. So I think video plays a really great part in generating awareness and getting eyes on you as a personal brand or from a brand perspective or a business. Whereas I see podcasts more of that kind of like middle of the funnel, very educational type of content that is, you're spending an hour or two with a creator, you're getting to know them on much more of a personal level. And I think video and podcasts work well together because you're driving the attention through very visual formats, but then actually you're really getting to know a creator in a podcast setting, which is mostly auditory. Although nowadays it's probably steered more towards video than auditory, which is interesting. But video is, in my opinion, the most powerful way to market a business. You can do it for free. You can just do it organically, although all you're sacrificing is your time, or you can run it as paid ads. And I'm not here to talk to people in terms of how to market the business, but from my experience, I've been doing this for a decade. I mean, it's allowed us to generate a huge amount of revenue for our business. My businesses, just through posting online, building a personal brand, making stupid videos on the internet. It's really allowed me to build businesses to the point that they sell out in under an hour, and it's been very resourceful from my time. So I 100% vouch for it.
So obviously you've gone from running an agency with multiple employees. Why the step back to being a solopreneur again? Was that more of because I know myself, the bigger you get and whatnot, there's more pressures and things like that. Did you just decide that's not for you anymore, or were you forced into going back? Like things like, changes from COVID, or what was the deal?
It's a good question, to be honest. I think I'm very transparent in talking about those business decisions, because I think if someone is in my shoes, I think it might help them and steer them in the right direction. For me, it probably came down to two things. One was lifestyle. Running a production company, running a team, growing an agency, I think you tend to work a lot of hours for very minimal payoff financially. I'm just happy to be open about that. We really put a lot of blood, sweat, tears and passion into the projects that we work on. But I think as the demand is probably underweighing the supply for this sort of stuff in terms of video production, I think it's becoming more of a price thing. And in the UK, you just can't really compete on price because somebody around the world is going to be able to do it 10 times cheaper for about the same quality. So I think it was a demand and supply issue there a little bit. But also just from a lifestyle perspective, I don't want to be driving up to Scotland from London on a 7-hour trek to film with a client for a couple of £1,000. It might make sense if you're a small freelancer and you're doing this and you're like, wow, a couple of £1,000, this is brilliant. But from our side, we're having to do 40, 50 grand a month just to cover the payroll of the business. That's then not equipment costs and wear and tear and all that sort of stuff. So I think it just became less financially viable as the supply grew and the demand kind of dwindled a little bit. But also I think, I'm 28, so I'm still a young guy, entering my 30s. I want to settle down. I want to have kids. I don't want to be doing stupid 18-hour days every week. I want to be there with my family, building my future and supporting my kids and stuff. So I think bit of a two-pronged approach there.
It's really interesting that, and it's good that you'll talk about that and even admit it, because a lot of people, if they go from running a business with a bunch of employees and that, they will tell themselves, it's only if you're not getting bigger, that's bad, and that's typically how people will value themselves and each other. But a lot of people might do that, grow a business to a certain level and go, I don't actually like this lifestyle. It's maybe too much. And, we had a similar thing, again, coming from a music background. It's really good to be honest with yourself. We were, for a while, doing a bunch of albums, major label albums and stuff like that. Money was all right, pretty good, better than working with local bands for sure. And then something happened and it kind of stopped. It all just, the work stopped coming. It stopped being as, but it's good that you can admit it to yourself and be like, I need to find another approach.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the growth mindset. I think social media, in my opinion, I think you're going to see two sides soon. I think you're going to see a really big split down the middle. I think you're going to see a side that really lean into it and really double down and really applaud that very always on, very fast paced kind of dopamine high situation. I think you're also going to have another group that really feel quite ostracized and quite alienated from that. And I think separate and go off of social to start building their own newsletters, their own spaces, their own communities, that it's not about maximizing attention, it's about maximizing value. For me, I am on group B. I'm there to maximize value as opposed to maximize my attention. I think it's just from a mindset perspective, I think being in that growth mode all the time, whilst there are people that can do that, for me, I'm just not interested in doing that at all. I don't want to become a billionaire. I don't want to grow the next Tesla. All I want to do, which I've kind of become very aware of recently, sort of in the last 6 months or so, is to build a business that helps other people and helps to support my family. That's literally it. And you can slander me for it, that I'm not in hungry growth mode and building a huge tech company and all this sort of stuff. But I think there is much more to life than just work, money. I'm sure that will come at some point. But for now, I think I just want to be a bit more settled with where I'm at. And I think the type of business that I'm building helps to support that sort of lifestyle. So yeah.
I couldn't agree more. So what kind of projects were you doing with the agency? Like you said, you were doing video for like massive companies. What sort of things, like adverts? What was the difference?
Yeah, good question. So we were doing probably a bit of a variety. So predominantly direct-to-consumer brands. So brands like, let's say, for example, Toshiba have a new laptop that they want to launch. They'd then come to us, and then we'd then essentially create these adverts that would then promote their products. It might have been some maybe smaller B2B businesses, so a bit of corporate work, but it was predominantly D2C brands. We shot with brands like Huel, we did Moju, we did Can of Water, did a little bit of stuff for Beavertown. I think that was actually free, so it wasn't necessarily a proper project. But we've worked with some pretty big brands. Most of the time, it was to market their products or service in a very creative way. And I think because we were all at the time, we're all Gen Zs, we're like 23, 24, very hungry for that super creative approach. I think it worked. I think it worked really well, and that's also why we did a lot of video, because it really showed off our personality as an agency that weren't just, here to work on the next project and pay our salaries and have a bit of creativity. It was like, we really want to go for this. And I think that helped to then generate leads for the business. That then helped to grow it. But yes, it was predominantly to promote products or services, but in very standout ways, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know enough about videography, even though I am not a videographer by any stretch of the imagination, enough to know that is some complex stuff you used to do. That is some stuff that takes insane gear, insane knowledge and time. It's trial and error, these things. So is it strange now that you're showing people, someone who obviously has spent a lot of your life learning how to make things super high quality, but you're showing people how to do things on their phone, which, don't get me wrong, phone cameras are great, but you must know inside the difference. And it's like, oh man, and it's because it's the same thing where I'll be like, what the best is, and it goes against the grain a little to not be using the best all the time. Is it strange kind of coming to terms with that and preaching to people, hey, do you know what you can do this with your phone? You can do that with your phone. Again, even though they're great, knowing what can be done.
I think so. It's definitely a balance. I think most of the people probably use phones because the barrier to entry to be able to afford that is more accessible. But there are still people in the club who use professional kit, But again, I think there's a real split now. And I think that the professional stuff, in my opinion, is not as natural and not as authentic, kill the buzzword there, as UGC stuff, so stuff that you shoot on your phone, user-generated content. And again, I think we're going to see a really big shift in the next year or two to brands that are built from personalities that grow online through building in public and showing their process and showing the behind the scenes of their business and filming stuff on their phones just to document instead of physically creating stuff. So going back to that kind of Gary Vaynerchuk mantra, document, don't create. I think the polished stuff, there's a time and there's a place for it. I think if you are a big brand and you've got a lot of, company credibility behind you and you really want to position yourself as a very high ticket and you need that very premium perception about the business, I think it's important to invest in something that's super high quality. For most people, we're not big blue chip brands. We're small businesses that have a small team that actually we buy and we connect with people on a personal basis. And I think the best way to show your personality is by filming stuff on your phone. It's very raw, it's very natural, it's very authentic. It doesn't take much time to do. Most people can afford to do it. The barrier to entry is cheaper and more cost effective. And you can get some really good stuff on a phone. You just got to know how to use it properly, And I think a lot of it is down to story, it's down to scripting, it's down to narrative as opposed to the visuals. I think the visuals just enhance the content. But actually, you can film some pretty viral stuff just by learning how to grab attention straight away and just by doing a bit of research into human psychology and even things like color theory, really geeky stuff. But this is not a quality thing. It's more of a data analytical scientific game as opposed to probably where it was 3-4 years ago, where it is all about, we need this looking cinematic, we need it looking very visual to stop and grab attention. But I think that it can feel very inauthentic now to have very polished brand content. It's almost like you're going to be sold to. And I think a lot of consumers nowadays kind of pull back a little bit, especially from newer brands. I think more established household names, if you saw a Dyson or you saw a Tesco, for example, in the UK, you're probably going to go, well, yeah, they're shooting stuff on the phone would be a bit weird and they're probably trying too hard to connect to us on an emotional level and it will go against trying to be authentic because it's ironically not. But the smaller brands, I just think that that's how people are going to connect in the future. I think it's got to come from a phone.
It's interesting you said that because when we switched over from recording music and came into podcasts, it wasn't just that. It was a trial and error of all sorts of services. So we've done a load of audiobooks, podcasts, short form video. It was the same thing. And I think one of the many reasons we landed on podcasts as like a kind of core service is because exactly like you said there, with the short form stuff where it's like you're looking at it and it's all professional, that's great, but people are aware. It's like, oh, I'm being sold to here. And it's like, you want me to listen, I'm not going to do it, But if it's a podcast, and again, whether it's high quality, low quality, again, I think quality matters when it comes to that, but people aren't being sold to directly in that respect. It's like they get to be a fly on the wall in a conversation. And I always thought that, like, it became clear to me recently, like the whole, people don't want to be sold to. And again, if it's podcast context as opposed to short form, looking straight at a good camera, it's like, I know you want to tell me something, I don't want to listen. It goes against our instincts.
I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, so that actually brings me on to something else. The whole being sold to thing. I was curious about business development. Obviously, the show is Mastering Business Growth, and there's two things I think about every business, and there's getting the work and doing the work. So when it comes to getting the work, obviously with what you're doing now, it'll be so different to what you're doing with the agency. So back there, I'll be curious actually about both. So when it was the agency stuff, big bands like Huel and whatnot, how did you go about getting those kind of clients?
So I think, well, that's a good one. I think having a lot of skin in the game, so having years of experience under our belt. I mean, we were going for 6-7 years. So it's a short amount of time for a business, but in agency world, that's like a fairly established amount of time. So I think we were able to build a bit of a kind of, again, it goes back to relationships and rapport with the right types of people. And I believe your network is your net worth. So being able to create personal branding content that then connects me with the right people that knows this person who's looking for content, who happens to run Huel or who happens to run Simmer or whatever it might be, I think was really helpful. I think the second is that the work spoke for itself. So we didn't try, and I say this very humbly, in the sense of that we didn't have to try too hard to get clients because the work was really good. And because we put a lot of love, time, energy, passion, and the results came through, I think people saw that as, wow, these guys know what they're doing. I also think because we niched down probably a little bit too late, we niched down in probably about year 4. So we broadly started saying, right, we're going to target anyone who wants to create standout videos on the internet. By year 4, that wasn't working very well. And we said, right, where's the gap now? D2C brands, because they haven't got in-house teams at the time anyway. That was 3 years ago. And I think because we were just doing D2C stuff, you kind of create this kind of like competitor FOMO where other D2C founders or marketing managers go, oh, they've just worked with Huel. Their videos look really good. We want to do something like Huel and we want to compete. So let's get them on and get into our stuff. So it's kind of a bit of friendly competition as well. So yeah, definitely experience and skin in the game. I think let the work speak for itself and create a product or service so good that it kind of creates that fear of missing out that other people want to kind of jump on that bandwagon. And also, I'm going to say lastly, just being a nice person. I think, people really underestimate that in business. And I think building a great product and building a great service is really important. But I think when you're dealing in the service-based industry where people buy from people, I think you've just got to be a genuine person that is genuinely interested in the work that they do, and they're not there to money grab. They're there to make a bit of a difference. And that's always kind of what we were trying to achieve when I was running Odyssey. And it still runs now. It's just that we are a team of 33 freelancers, I think, that kind of amalgamate on projects that we bring together when we need to. But I'm not sure how much longer that will be around, just out of personal choice more than anything else. So just because I'm enjoying the Content Club a bit more. So, yeah.
I was going to say, with the Content Club, how does that work? How do you monetize that? Is it about creating a community to then do more freelance jobs, or do you monetize it directly?
No, not at all. So, yeah, the Content Club is its own standalone business. So it's a monthly membership where people pay £50 a month at the time of recording, which is the 11th of November 2024. And prices might go up. That's why I said that. And essentially every month we let 25 people in. We gate people on the wait list, so people will join the wait list if you get in when you have the chance to, and it kind of grows from there. But it makes sense from a financial perspective because it's monthly. It's built in the sense of it's like a SaaS product. You know, you're onboarding new users all the time. You're getting feedback. You're finessing it based on their experience. And when people join, they're paying monthly, and as the monthly people grow and grow and grow, the financials of the business make more sense. Obviously, right now it's in its infancy. It's 47 days old, but again, every time we've done it, it's sold out. It's not to promote anybody else to move into a higher ticket service. If anything, I will probably steer people if that's what they're looking for. So let's say, for example, someone joins the Content Club and say, I've loved doing my videos, but now I want to really good polished brand video for my business. I'll probably go, well, that's not me. I'm all in on the Content Club. Here's my huge list of connections. Go and reach out to one of them. I'll probably take some sort of commission from that nowadays. That's worked quite well. But I'm just all in on the community thing, man. I think they're going to really pop off soon, and I just want to be there, having one that's already established, that's got hundreds of members in it, that's got a bit of skin in the game before that kind of bubble explodes and suddenly it's like, right, I've got 10 communities that I'm subscribed to. Which one should we bin off this month and which one do I actually get value from? So I think it's only a matter of time.
That's a genius model, and I've spoken to a few people since I started shooting these podcasts, and they have a very similar model. They know, like you said earlier, your network is your net worth. And the more people you know, it's like, hey, you know what, I can make money off my own company, but I can also make money off yours and yours and yours, and you don't even have to do the work. You just have to be the guy who made the intro. Is that something you were consciously aware of when you went into it, or did you kind of go, oh, look how that worked out, you know?
Very, very conscious, all intentional decisions. I think I had the idea that it would make sense if you start to grow your network and you grow your black book of people, that eventually it would amalgamate and lead to something. But I mean, I'm probably steering, I'd say 2 or 3 people a month to other agencies that I then personally get commission on, which is brilliant. It scratches everyone's back. It scratches mine financially, it scratches theirs in terms of supporting the team and growing their business, and it scratches the client's back because they get a really reputable piece of content. So everybody wins in that situation. I fell out of love of the doing. It's really hard graft, and I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm probably working longer hours than I've ever worked, but it's just a different type of work. It's more mental as opposed to physical. And when you're in the video industry, you start developing bad backs and everyone's knackered and you work in crazy hours and you're traveling all over the world, and it really takes it out of you, So I'm nice that I can sit in my very nice cozy office, live stream all day, reply to comments, build community, build things that people want to be part of, and be able to go home and spend time with my dog and go on hikes and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
It's really nice that you admit that and talk about it, because again, going back to the music thing, a lot of people are like, oh my God, did it not work out in music? It's like, nah, man, we jumped ship before it sank, it was brutal. First of all, most of your clients are young dudes who have pocket money, and the competition is wild, and it is insane graft. If you want to do like a 10-track album, it can be like a month's worth of work for 2 people, and at best you're going to get about $6,000 for that, and it's just not worth it. It's just not worth the work, and that is if you are lucky. If you're good at what you do, if you're quick at your job too. It's interesting that you say, yeah, not interested anymore. I'd lost interest in recording music. I'm very good at it. Don't care about it at all anymore. It's not even remotely interesting to me.
100%.
But when did you first realise and accept that you've lost your love for it?
I think I was going to come on to that. I think the industry is I wouldn't say it's dying. I just think it's just too competitive now, and I think that everyone's kind of competing in a very similar pond. I think it's I'm kind of hearing this across the board at the moment in this small sort of business world, that it's a lot of graft for very little payoff. I mean, we were kind of working on projects similar size to you guys. So we started from about $4,000. We were on retainer, so we only really worked at $4,000 a month is usually how we did it. But even that, it's just like marginal profit. Once you take VAT, tax off, team costs, service costs, travel, I mean, you're left literally with hundreds of pounds, and it doesn't make sense to do that. And I just thought, I think running an agency nowadays I think you can grow an agency quite quickly. I think most young people who've got the energy and can put the graft in to do that, I think they can build, a 5, 10, 20 person agency. I think that's pretty achievable. I think maintaining that from a cultural standpoint and pivoting fast enough that you are adjusting the business based on trends and what's happening in the market and supply and demand and niche and those sorts of things, I think is really tough. I think, especially in the UK over the last couple of years, and even right now, like people are struggling with cost of living crisis. Basically, all our staff costs almost doubled in the cost of living. It's been a rough few years in the UK economy. And I just kind of got sick of it. I'm doing 16, 17-hour days, Monday to Saturday, coming home late, not seeing my partner, not spending quality time with family, alienating myself from friends just to get work done for what would be a couple of grand in the bank profit at the end of the month. And it's kind of like, that might be fine for some people, but I didn't see that way up against the hours that I was putting in. It was probably below minimum wage, to be honest. So I just thought, something needs to change. And as much as I love it, and honestly, if I hadn't had this mindset, I would still be doing the agency stuff because I really enjoy it. It's a very cool industry for people who really want to connect with people and grow their network and make a bit of a name for themselves and to test things out as well whilst you're young. But I'm just trying to get out whilst that bubble hasn't popped yet. I'm trying to build something that by the time it has popped, it's already established and it's already incredibly successful. But I mean, you're probably talking a couple of years away. Yeah, I just think you're going to see a lot of a drop of, especially video production companies. They're going to really struggle in the next few years as all the youngsters are now building them. And, there's also a little bit here in terms of ageism as well. I think... how do I approach this lightly? I think the older you get in the agency world, I think you can be seen as less reputable because you're not as trendy and you're not as current. And even though 28, 30s is still incredibly young, I mean, you're just getting started at that point. I think when you start to enter 40s, 50s, yes, you could probably hire a young team, but I do think people question the feasibility of can she or he really keep up with what's going on? Are they really ahead of the curve? Or are they just saying that for marketing spill? So I think it's just thinking long term. Really, the only two routes were, and I know I'm waffling here, but the only two routes really were grow it to the point that I could sell it, which probably wouldn't happen because by the time it would get ready for sale, 5 years in, 6 years in, something would have happened. The industry would have changed. The niche would have developed, and it doesn't make sense. Or it just goes bust because we couldn't get any clients and we have too many expenses to go out. So they're the kind of two ways that I saw it going, and I just didn't really want either of them really. So that's a really long-winded way of saying I saw the gap early, even though it hasn't happened yet. So that's a preemptive guess, and I've jumped ship to build something new whilst potentially waiting for the bubble to pop. Yeah.
No, I got you. No, that makes perfect sense, mate. So I'm also curious. What you are effectively selling is how people can make money from creating video content. That is your thing. You're showing people how to do that. But then at the same time, you understand that network is net worth. And they are, I would say, almost like an old school and new school train of thought. I personally believe that the two work perfectly in conjunction with each other, and you need them both. Are you able to measure an ROI on either of them, or how do you go about judging which one's working better for you or for your clients?
I think when it comes to the creating content to get leads, 100%, you can absolutely quantify that from a tangible metrics standpoint, cash in the bank, leads generated, conversations started, those sorts of things. I think when it comes to network as your net worth, again, I think it's probably less tangible because it's more based on relationships and emotion. But I think you can definitely see the longer term rewards of playing that long-term game with network. I think video can be quite a short-term game, which is nice for kind of instant bump and lead gen and getting yourself out there in marketing. I think networking and building that rapport with those types of people it's a much longer term play. And you never know where people are going to go in the future. They might jump ship, they might join you, you might hire somebody else that knows somebody else. And I think it's nice to have that, because when you need someone to help out, the chances are your network's going to be able to support you in some way or another. So they do go both hand in hand, but that's kind of how I see business. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're building on foundations that have proven to work for decades and decades and decades, which is that people buy from people. Relationships are at the core of every service-based business. To grow a business, you've just got to make a great product. That's kind of it, and just market it in a creative way. Paired with the new way of marketing, which I think still a lot of people are quite far behind in the times. I think a lot of people have their head in the sand about it a little bit. Maybe they're scared to change things. But I think that's really the way to do business. It's adapting the old with the new, blending them both, but keeping the foundational parts of business pretty much dialed in and locked in all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember not so long ago, I did a post on LinkedIn. It was talking about what's better, inbound or outbound. And then I kind of boiled it down to, it doesn't matter. They're both just different ways where you can go from absolute obscurity to connection made. Once you're at that point and you can build that relationship with people, it really doesn't matter how you got there. So outbound's great in terms of, we do this now, reach out to people. Can I speak to them on my podcast? Most people are happy to come talk about what they're doing. That's great. And then you can use that as the start of a relationship, which might turn into referrals, maybe direct business, who knows? But the same with, if you're doing marketing, making video content, people are getting to know you before they even get to know you. I've literally had people walk into the studio before and be like, I know you. And I'm like, from where? It's like, but then, a minute later, oh, yeah. Oh, my videos. I see, I get you. So really, it's just a way of putting yourself out there and building that relationship without actually doing it. And then once people are then happy to speak to you, it's a really good way of increasing your inbound. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you're covering all bases. You're covering your short-term cash flow and you're covering your long-term brand build and networking. Same thing, I guess, with you guys in this podcast. It's that I will jump on this. I'll have a bit of an ego boost because I'm on camera and my content gets shared. But I'm like, wait, nice. But I'll know who you are. So if someone has a conversation with me in the future that say, I need someone that does this, I go, I can put you in the right direction. So it's your network is your net worth. But at the same time, you've got your short-term cover because you'll create lots of content around this that can then go on to social. So then people can see you and they can go, wow, this is really cool. He does this. Let's get in touch. So it's a very clever way of doing it.
Yeah, totally. So going back to when you wrapped up the agency, and you're like, right, I'm going to start again. Did you know you were going to start the content club? Or did you think, I'm just done with the agency, I might even go get a regular job?
So Odyssey still exists now, and it's still rolling. We still have a few clients on board that are retainers. Every client kind of knows that it's winding down, which is nice. We've had that very open conversation. Again, luckily, we've been working with them for years, not weeks, so we can have that sort of much more transparent conversation. The content club right now, where it is it doesn't make any financial sense to run this business. If I was now coming out of uni or I'd just been made redundant and I had no income, I wouldn't be doing this at all, because this is a very long-term play. I mean, you're talking about pennies and pounds as opposed to thousands and 10,000s, It's a very different financial model to an agency. I mean, agency, like we were doing projects for 40, 50 plus grand. We were doing retainers for 8, 9, 10 grand a month, I think we were doing, at one point, I think it was about 70, 80 grand a month in recurring revenue, which is brilliant. We kept that for about 6, 7 months, which is great. But there's a lot of pressure there. There's a lot of, if you miss the delivery, if you bugger up one small thing, that can really impact that revenue. So you had to be on the ball all the time. I think when you're talking about small amounts of money, I think people are a little bit more forgiving. I think I much prefer the approach of under-promising and over-delivering as opposed to under-delivering and over-promising. I think agency life, you can definitely over-promise. You can kind of promise the world to secure some clients, and whatever you do, it's never enough. And there's always that kind of hanging over your shoulders. With this type of business, because you're talking about £50 a month, it's big money for some people, but I think for most people it's an affordable amount of money. Suddenly when they see everything that they get, and then suddenly they see that they get kind of consultancy as well on that, and they get one-to-one time, and they get this huge pool of people that they can access and network with, I think they go, wow, that's really cheap. But it doesn't make sense to do it now. I mean, again, it's early days. It's not doing huge money. And But hopefully the plan is that within the next 12 months, it makes more financial sense. And that's my risk to take in business. If it doesn't work, that's my fault and that's my risk. And I can hold my hands up and say, I got that wrong. But I think that's a really big part of business. But Odyssey is still very much going. It's kind of paying my salary for the time being. I'm still working with clients on it and they know how it all works, which is great. But as Odyssey winds down, hopefully the Content Club will start to wind up and you'll get into this very happy middle ground where you can kind of make that choice to switch things over. So it's been very meticulously planned from the start.
Was it scary going from, like you say, some companies paying you 8, 9, 10 sort of grand a month? Because we sometimes do it. We'll have massive projects. It's like, oh, that one they've paid, sweet, bank's looking good. But then if you now go to a position where it's like, oh my God, I need 20 people to all pay me 50 quid. Is that scary watching those numbers either come in or not?
I think it can be. I've always been very sensible with finances, so I always have at least 6 months cash in the bank at all times. I've never dropped below that. I think especially in the early days of running the agency in the first place, it was month to month for about 3 years. If someone missed an invoice by a day, we were in the red, and it was scary. So I very quickly learned to build up a cash flow, build up a bit of a bank, and to have pretty firm terms with payment. If you miss this, we're going to increase the price by this. We're going to add this on, and it's all a big learning period, right? Where it is now, people, it's all direct debit, so it comes out on the same day every month. I know it's coming in. It's only going to grow, which is great. So it feels, even though it's a smaller amount of money, it is more predictable, and I think that makes me feel at ease a lot more. Again, you're only talking, a couple of £1,000 or £50 here and there, but when you've sent an invoice for 50 grand and that's 90 days overdue, you can't really do anything. It's what do you do at that situation? So I think even though it was a larger amount of money, the stress to get that money, even though you'd done the work and you'd invoiced it and it was overdue, but it still wasn't paid, was just astronomical. It was absolutely astronomical. So you're talking smaller numbers, but the consistency of getting paid this way makes much more sense.
Yeah, so we've done the same. Again, whether it was in music or even some podcast stuff, we've had some massive clients and they are the worst ones by a long shot in terms of getting money out of it. And it's stressful dealing with them because you think, you guys are huge. You've got the money. Why aren't you paying me? But you're now thinking that we're a small company. This could ruin us. Why did they not pay it?
100%, mate, 100%. Some of the clients we work with, especially the bigger tech brands, obviously I won't name them for legal reasons, but they work on 9-day payment terms. Sometimes they'll miss that. And as a small business, your cash flow is the lifeblood of your business, right? And if you're not getting paid after 90 days of doing the service, you can't survive, right? So some months, when we've gotten 50 grand of payroll to come out, it's squeaky bum time if they don't pay, and I've had to sacrifice my salary a lot to be able to cover team costs. And it sucks, especially after you put that much work into it. But it's tough, man. It's tough. So switching to this revenue model, even though it's smaller, it's more predictable. I'm not having sleepless nights over it, and even though it's a significantly smaller amount of money, and it wouldn't make sense on its own now. Long-term vision. I'm all about the long-term plan in business. Think long-term, think years, not weeks, not months. That's sort of my mentality on entrepreneurship and running business and that sort of stuff.
Good man. I do want to bring this to a close soon, but just walk me through. Let's say I want to join the Content Club. How does it work? Where do I start?
So you join the waitlist, which you can do at www.the-content-club.com. And pretty much it. You wait. If you can get in, you can get in at the end of the month. The door's open for 25 people. If you can't get in because it sells out very quickly, then you just have to wait another 4 weeks. But every month there's something new, there's something changing. So if you want to be part of that kind of growth journey, then try and get in as soon as you can. But I think the way to do it is you just got to be there at the time, on the day, have your alarm set, be ready to click that link as soon as it comes through emails. And then you can join and you can be part of an amazing community, man. But it's tough to get in, which is great. I can sit here and say, great, we've got 400 people waiting to get in, which is brilliant. Very fortunate position. And I quite like the exclusivity of it as well. But yeah, so join the wait list and then wait for the doors open date. And if you can get in, happy days. If you can't, you sneeze, you lose.
Do you do that very much on purpose just to keep that demand high and that prestige?
100%. It's also 100%. It's an exclusivity thing, so it creates fear of missing out. But it's so it's a very good demand builder. But I also think in a community business, I think the community really make or break that. And I think the people can break it very quickly if they're the wrong types of people. So whilst I could now, I could go, I won't talk about the numbers financially, but I could go from 0 to being very happy financially overnight. I think that will kill the business in a month's time, because suddenly you've got 450 people in a club, everyone's shouting, you don't really know where the problems are because it's too noisy. So 20, 25 people a month is nice, it's slower, but you get to build real rapport with the people that join. I was talking to a couple of members earlier, because we all have one-to-one calls. When people join, I sit down for half an hour with them, give them a bit of time, get to learn about them and their business and what they're struggling with and what they enjoy and that sort of stuff. And even though, every month it probably equates to 12 and a half hours of my time, it's really valuable to make people feel like they've kind of found their place, like they've been heard, and you get to build that relationship with people. Again, going back to your network as your net worth, having that conversation makes them feel more welcome. It onboards them in a much more smoother way. And you never know, in a year's time, even if they quit the club, I will remember that conversation and go, oh, I needed an IP lawyer. Oh, I can go to this lady. Oh, I needed a designer. Oh, I remember this guy who was in the club years ago and I can go to him, because you've got that relationship. So very slow and steady growth, I think, is how you build a community. So 25 people a month, that's all we let in. I will never, ever, ever open it for more than that, because it's too much at once. So yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll call it there. Jack, thank you so much. I learned a lot. I think your insight on video and how people can use it is amazing. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thanks so much for having me on.